this government will never surrender to the IRA, never.
These people will never win. Democracy will triumph over evil.
In the shadows, the British state, the Brits, prepared to take the war to the IRA. The ground was laid by 14 Intelligence Company, the Det, the Army's most secret surveillance unit. The new offensive gave rise to allegations that the Brits had a policy of shoot to kill, fueled by a series of bloody confrontations. In one incident, the Det were monitoring IRA weapons in a field. When it was known the IRA was coming, the Det and the SAS made ready.
Myself and my partner drove out 2 members of the SAS and we dropped them off near to where the weapons were hidden. It wasn't a gung-ho attitude. The SAS were there primarily to arrest them and recover the weapons.
Such operations were meticulously planned. Only when the intelligence was confirmed would the go-ahead be given. Lives were on the line.
What did you hear?
What we heard over our radio net, there was the words contact, contact, which obviously meant an engagement was occurring. There was also the sound of gunfire.
And what happened to the 2 IRA men?
They were killed. Weapons were recovered from them.
Was a warning given?
I was told a warning was shouted to them, yes.
Who told you?
That was from the SAS.
Did you believe them?
I did.
Jerry Adams and Martin McGuinness presided at the funeral of the 2 dead IRA men, known to be Brian Campbell and Colm McGurr. They were buried with full IRA honours. The IRA alleged the SAS had given no warning, no chance to surrender. Republicans accused the SAS of murder, their central charge against the British state. I was here in South Armagh at the beginning of 1976, reporting a series of horrendous tit-for-tat sectarian killings. And I vividly remember wondering whether indeed the province was on the brink of civil war. You could see the fear in people's faces, and you could almost taste it in the air. Since the early 70s, I'd watched successive governments try to end the bloodshed with a variety of political solutions, and by even talking directly to the IRA. But all these attempts had failed. By 1976, it was clear that politics had reached a dead end, and that the IRA was determined to carry on killing. It wasn't therefore surprising that the government made security its #1 priority, and the SAS was the cutting edge.
The SAS ought to give it its proper title, the 22nd Special Air Service Regiment. One of the smallest and certainly the most secret fighting force in the world, they're taught to kill, maim, damage and destroy here in the somewhat mundane surroundings of Herefordshire.
The SAS was no stranger to Northern Ireland, as over the years members had served there giving advice to other regiments. But now the SAS was to be deployed officially to take on the IRA in South Armagh.
Certainly when they were first deployed, there was the IRA fear that there was an SAS trooper hiding under every bush. And so as a result of that, the IRA became very much more circumspect.
I think there was a fear that this rather mysterious body called the SAS, which most people didn't in fact know very much about, if it were deployed in Northern Ireland, it might act in some rather ruthless way and perhaps lead to criticism. On the other hand, there was the argument that the SAS was a very professional body of men. If deployed, it could probably do some military tasks better than anybody else. Therefore, why not deploy it?
But before that arm was triggered, other agencies had to provide the vital intelligence. RUC Special Branch recruited informers. MI5 planted listening devices in IRA houses and hides, and undercover soldiers, the Det, bugged IRA weapons and tracked their men on the ground.
I wanted to be in there. I wanted to be at the forefront. I wanted to know what was going on. I wanted to make a contribution, I suppose. At least do a professional job, work with professional people, not just wander around aimlessly, wandering around the countryside, you know, talking to the locals, presenting yourself as a target occasionally.
Frank did several tours with the Det in the 70s and 80s. We haven't identified undercover soldiers for reasons of personal security.
This unit obviously was a very professional unit and had some impact on the situation. There was a quote by some senior officer who comes to mind that one operator, which is what we were called, was worth a company of soldiers on the ground.
Which is how many?
120, something like that.
Every day, the men and women of the Det risked their lives operating undercover in the heart of Republican strongholds. In Derry, the IRA tried to hijack an operator's car, not knowing who he was or that his partner was close behind.
I was the lead car of two, and as we drove around the back of the Rossville flats, I was hijacked.
Jim joined the Det in the late 70s and became one of its most experienced operators. He's lucky to be alive. What happened?
They had a system then of hijacking cars to use in bombings, and they assumed I was a prime target for hijack, a relatively young single bloke in a car on my own. Two gunmen emerged from the corner of a street and flagged me down, stopped me, drew their guns and tried to get me out of the car. And unfortunately, the gunman that day took on the wrong people.
Jim's partner in the following car saw what was happening. What does your colleague do behind you?
He got out of his car and fired two shots at each of the two gunmen. He missed one, hit the other in the leg, and the one on the left-hand side ran away who hadn't been hit, and the one that hit in the leg went down on the pavement. The guy who'd been hit in the leg was still a threat to me. He still had the gun in his hand. And so I shot him 4 times through the chest.
But why do you kill him if he's already on the ground and wounded?
He had a gun in his hand. He was still a threat.
Kick the gun away from him? Take the gun away from him?
It wasn't as simple as that.
Shoot him in the arm? Why kill him?
It wasn't as simple as that, no. It was a case of he had to go down.